Part 4. Inexperienced experience carry over bad seeds, prodigies. Inexperienced experience carried over bad seeds, prodigies. A factor of soul evolution reincarnation is the energy of the soul at the end of the last physical life existence or experience. The carnal nature will be more predominant in souls new to the human experience. This can be one of the main reasons there are people society judges as bad seeds. No matter how they are raised or what they are taught, they just will not be anything other than what is considered as bad. These can be the new or very young souls, which are subject more to the energy of the body and the soul's carnal nature. Some so-called bad seeds can also be souls that have had many incarnations and even quite a bit of experience, but they are spiraling down, dissipating, and maybe headed for lights out. They have not gained in energy and light, but have dissipated in energy and light. The energy of those souls gets so dissipated that they only have enough to physically incarnate. As a consequence, the physical body becomes so dense that the soul does not have enough energy to keep from being driven by the DNA and carnal nature. Souls that have become this dissipated are probably going to be unable to evolve to a state of enlightenment. Old souls are those that have evolved and carry the energies of a multitude of physical lifetimes and are usually considered very wise. Their souls have evolved through reincarnation to a higher level of energy and understanding, whether it is conscious or unconscious. This to me explains how some people seem to understand things without having to be taught. It is an explanation for what is considered prodigies, people who exhibit amazing talents and abilities from a very young age by human standards without being taught. Their experience and abilities from previous lifetimes, I believe, are carried into their current lifetime in a profound way, such as automatically remembering how to play an instrument or create without remembering how they know. The Groundhog Day scenario offers a great analogy of evolution from the new individual soul to the prodigy type of aware soul. At first, the soul, being inexperienced and driven by physical instinct and carnal nature, is egotistical, prideful, and uncompassionate. It tries to take advantage of others for carnal gratification and attempts life and death by trying new ways to live recklessly and destructively without regard for others, only to keep waking up and starting over again, or to keep reincarnating and starting over again. As the soul gains energy and experience, it also gains awareness from the repetition and apparent circle. It gains compassion as it realizes that there are actually others involved and affected, which causes it to desire to be more harmonious and starts to understand love. This continues until it comes to understand the true meaning of life and masters it with full understanding. Then the experienced mastered soul becomes a loving guide and example for others. God is purposeful extreme. God is love, pure love, spirit energy. It is the energy that exists as no thing and is the essence of all things. The experience of God, heaven, in pure form is on a razor's edge, the line between opposite extremes, which the Buddha said is the path of enlightenment. If the instrument string is too loose, it will not play. If it is too tight, it will break. God without life is one extreme, the other is dense, unaware physical experience. The razor's edge of those is light, aware, spiritual experience. Heaven and hell can only be experienced conceptually through physical experience. God created, well, I may get more into that. God created the physical universe from God pure energy to live, to experience life. There cannot be a king without a kingdom, and there cannot be a kingdom without subjects in need of a king. Animals, well, I'll just really quick say that, like I said, I wrote this a long time ago, and there are things that I was adjusting a few years ago, and there's things in this that I know that are not precise, but it's not really about being precise. It's about sharing these kind of things to show, to shed light on the Bible, for one thing, to show the little book in it, the unleavened Bible. And, it's not about believing me again. It's about just having that little seed to question, to go and seek God, to confirm for yourself. And then you can know these things. You can know everything that Jesus knew. You can be wise like Solomon. You can be all of these things if you are an experienced soul. If you're not, then you will be eventually. Animals, creatures, beasts, and fowl are mainly DNA living by instinct. They do not and will not think of meaning of life, as they basically exist unconsciously. They are conscious life, but obviously unaware. They have need, fear, and survival instinct built into them. The God spirit energy is just basically witnessing unconsciously as far as the body is concerned, but the soul evolves through the experience. They cannot exist without God's spirit, and God needs them to evolve awareness of self. It's the way God created it. Man is the final dense physical step of the God soul evolving through physical experience. That then is just the beginning of the whole spiritual eternal evolution. Man can be exactly like the beasts with God's spirit witnessing, and can evolve to awareness, knowing the meaning of life. The meaning of life simply is for God to experience awareness of self. God experiencing what God is not in order to experience what God is. Spinning? I understand all of this much better than I am able to express in writing, but it really is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. When ready, you will look within yourself and find your answers. When you have the desire to know the mystery of God and see what you really are, you will have to go against the grain and realize you are worthy and able. Stop telling your truth to learn the truth. Let go of all judgment. Stop seeing a lost world that needs to be saved, especially that you need to, or even that you can save or fix the world or any individual. Stop thinking anything is right or wrong, good or bad. God is pure, unconditional love. If you judge, fear, need, and so on, God is untouchable to you. God is untouchable to you, but only because you naturally separate yourself by not opening to unconditional love. Be patient with yourself in letting go of old ways. The way of enlightenment is the middle way, the line between opposite extremes. It is pure unconditional love and infinite patience. Bruce Lee said in order for him to teach, Bruce Lee, the martial artist, the great, he said in order for him to teach people, they would have to empty their cup. They would have to let go of everything they had learned and start over, or he could not teach them. The 10 Commandments are symbolic of what being enlightened is like. You do not get to enlightenment by following commandments. When enlightened, it is automatic. But you must empty your cup of any religion, of anything, in order for God to be able to fill you up with the wisdom, or to open you to the wisdom. What life means. The meaning of life is actually very simple. Simple for me to understand anyway, but to explain it is something else, and to write it is even more challenging, believe me. This writing is not meant to teach you, though. It may challenge and inspire, but you can only understand from within you first. It is God, pure unconditional love, which just is, no thing that decided somehow to become something, and in so doing became aware of what God is by creating an opposite extreme and evolving to the middle for the ultimate experience of pure unconditional love consciousness, which is enlightenment. From is to all, like energy, when split into positive and negative for electricity, it can then become light. A bulb becomes enlightened. Genesis 3:5. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing God and evil. Genesis 3:22. And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil, and now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou comest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee and ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. And this is talking to a prophet, obviously, but this is the way it works for all of us because we all have that ability. Matthew 10:30. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Timothy 1:9. Who hath saved us and called us with an holy calling, not according to our works, but according to his own purpose and grace, which was given us in Christ Jesus before the world began. Very important stuff right there. His own purpose and grace, which was given us in Christ Jesus before the world began. So Jesus then represents the body, the physical experience, and Christ is the energy experience, the God experience. Isaiah 46:9-10. Remember the things I have done in the past, for I alone am God. I am God, and there is none like me. Only I can tell you the future before it even happens. Everything I plan will come to pass, for I do whatever I wish. Something I believe is a misconception is individual free will choice. But I would like to make it clear that I believe there really is no anything, no misinterpretation or misconception, no mistakes, and so on. We all believe unconsciously or consciously the only way we can believe according to the plan or purpose of our lives. I believe we all do have free will choice, but ultimately only in the sense that God chooses freely and God is us. Matthew 6:9-10. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. In earth. It's actually not a typo. That prayer is actually like a promise. It is what is. Our ego can think it has free will choice. It can think it can change the world just because it thinks it is bad or wrong, and that it can decide for others and take power over them. If one can choose to take power over others and do so, then everyone would be able to choose to take power over others and be able to do so. Then who would have the power? If you think there is chaos now, just think of the chaos that would create. There wouldn't be anything existing. There would be no comparison. To pray for the world, to change or for even one other to change, including yourself, is to judge against God's perfectly imperfect creation. Matthew 7:1-2. Judge not that ye be not judged, for with judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. Pray instead, thank you, God, for knowing what is best. Thy will is done. Pray in acceptance of the choices of others as you would have your choices accepted. We have the free choice to decide whether to go with the flow of God's choice for us or go kicking and screaming. Either way, God's choice will be fulfilled. The flowing or kicking and screaming are actually no mistake. Our life plan is set up where at the highest level exactly how each of our personal natures will respond is already known. The carnal nature and ego of the physical form is fully considered and understood down to the minutest detail. As our individual soul, the part that experiences physical separation, evolves, it understands up to the point of its evolution on its experience line. The higher part of us, which is in omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience, is in full understanding of the word of the whole picture and every minute detail and outcome from the beginning to end. Our higher parts are always in perfect sync and awareness. They are God in the form of e pluribus unum, out of one, many. I'm going to make it my way, but and say out of many one. More accurate, I think, would be out of one many. God chooses freely in perfect harmony with the minutest detail. I will use an extreme example because physical life is extreme. In order for one to be a murderer, there must be one or other ones that are to be murdered and so on. When it comes down to it, we do have free choice in our lives, but it is decided from the spirit level outside the physical veil. When I was pondering how it works, I was given an analogy of a football field. My field is set up. My parents, siblings, friends, mates, children, enemies, and so on. Every encounter is chosen and prepared. I start in the center of the field at the end zone with the goal, the outcome of my life's experience at the other end of the field. I can go straight down the middle of the field, go along gracefully, all the way to the goal, or I can choose to go down one side or the other. I can even move from side to side, go along kicking and screaming. But the field has boundaries and it has out of bounds lines. If I try to go out of bounds, the whistle is blown and I am kept in bounds by in bounds of my field. If I try to ignore the whistle and head on out of bounds, I can get kicked back into my field the hard way. I have experienced that a few times. I have found myself standing on the out of bounds line, ready to step out. I could hear the whistle blowing, but I chose to ignore it. It was like one of those invisible fences for pets. Step over the line and get a jolt like lightning. Sometimes I had to be knocked back like getting hit by a bat. Ouch. We always make it to the goal. We just do not always make it straight down the middle. Our fields also have many others playing with us and around us. Some fields overlap and some are nowhere near. To understand how it works brings great comfort. It brings, which is the comforter. Jesus said he will send the comforter. That's wisdom. That's understanding. That's knowing that it's all in control, all perfect. It brings the understanding that no matter what my ego may think, I cannot screw anything up. Nothing can be screwed up. God has game. Are they talking revolution? There's more to all of this than the physical. We are not really of this world. We just unconsciously think we are. We are actually really all God sitting in front of a universal TV playing the most advanced, realistic, universal virtual video game there is. The true controller is behind a veil. God is each of us holding our own controller. We are all God participating in the one game. We are also like God's avatars that are able to think it is all real. We as avatars cannot see behind the veil and cannot see that our part was purposefully chosen and created. The avatars may think they are real, but the part of us that remains outside the unconscious character existing behind the veil knows it is only a game and are all having fun, loving time. And that is how time is experienced. Like in the video games we play on our TV or computers, our part is chosen, and we get to consciously play the controller according to the pre-programmed game. We also get to be a virtual avatar that thinks it is real and that they are all there is. We play our part in the planned world. We may be a soldier, a llama, or anything else in between that fits into the game being played at the time. In this universal virtual game, we possibly have an infinite number of lives. Unlike the games on our TV and computer, this universal game never breaks down. Suppose we choose to be a fighter pilot and get shot down while he is flying a fighter jet. In the universal virtual game, we can start the game again and choose to be a fighter pilot again, or choose a different role like a pacifist. We can be a vicious villain, dictator, or a poor tortured victim. When the poor tortured victim is done with that, he can be a vicious villain, dictator, and vice versa. Or we can choose to think it is a bad and or a wrong world by chance and think we can change it to be something else to end the bad and or wrong our virtual avatars think is real. You say you want a revolution. Well, we all want to change the world. By the Beatles. We all as avatars, and yes, no, I can't sing, can't dance either. We all as avatars have our own opinion of what the world should look like, and pretty much everyone thinks they are right. No wonder this universal virtual game is so filled with illusion of conflict. The parts of each of us outside our virtual avatars are always at peace and are always in love and understanding, and really are not separate parts, but are one. There is really only one of us playing the game, all of us together one. Namaste. God grant us serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Oops. Thank you, God, for knowing what is best. Your will is done. Like an amusement park. Revelation 4:11. Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. I have been asked why God would keep experiencing the same things over and over again. Why not just do it once and be done with it? I think of it like people standing around a car. They all see the car differently. One sees a front fender and the other sees a door. As they move around, they see more of the same thing, only from different perspectives, until eventually they have all seen the whole thing. God is each of those, and each experience is different to some degree. I use a personal experience I had as an example. I went to a Six Flags amusement park in Dallas with 3 others. Yes, this was back in the 90, 91, 92, maybe somewhere around there, the early 90s. And it was the day before school started and the sky was overcast. So the place was nearly empty and we had full run of the place. So it was so awesome. We were able to pick whatever ride we wanted and not have to suffer long lines. So we would go on a ride, and as soon as it was done, we went back around and got right back on again as many times as we wanted. My favorite rides were the roller coasters. We could sit in the front, then the middle, then the back, and everywhere in between as we wanted. We could ride them over and over, each time looking in different directions for a different experience. We did not want to just ride the roller coasters, though. We knew there were other thrilling rides and wanted to experience them all, especially the biggest and fastest ones. I went on any ride that did not spin. I do not like spinning. And one ride was like a falling elevator. The first time we looked straight out, the second time we looked left, and so on, and until we had looked in every direction. I think we could have stayed in that park forever if they would have let us. And had we not gotten tired, as we did get tired, boy, we were just really running all around. I think it works the same for God, but God is eternal and infinite. God never gets tired, so God can play or can stay and play forever. Every experience is different to some degree, and God just cannot get enough, just like we could not that day at Six Flags. But like that park, it does close down for maintenance as needed and after a season. During the off season, old rides are removed and new rides get added to provide new experiences. And then another factor in why God seemingly keeps experiencing the same thing over and over again is in the creating of individuals. Even though each is God being individual, the individual gains its own imagination and comes to understand the workings of the park. Through evolving to the experience of what God is, the individual naturally has a desire to expand itself, to expand its experience. Then it becomes a creator or co-creator with all that God is and can imagine its own park with its own attendants. It can become God of its own world, so to speak. Is it endless? I think to some degree it is, kind of like the natural law of space. Once something is set into motion, it will always stay in motion. If you wonder, you have to ask God about it for yourself. Matthew 7:7. Ask and it shall be given, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be open. For everyone that asketh receiveth, everyone findeth, and the door is open. Even though when we experience what we understand from the physical as death, we go as Jesus said, this day you will be with me in paradise. I believe it is also said that Jesus basically went into hell during his 3 days and 3 nights of death. Between rides, we exist in paradise. We incarnate into the physical to be able to experience the opposite of paradise that is more natural to our soul. After death, physical, after getting off the roller coaster, the first few times it can feel more like purgatory, but the fear wears off and the experience is back to paradise. It is like being bathed in love and the fear is forgotten. The roller coaster looks pretty good again. In the movie La Bamba, an old man in Mexico said, to live is to sleep, to die is to awaken. Perhaps a better way to say it is to be born is to go to sleep, to die is to awaken. Life is eternal spiritual physical experience. It's only a physical experience is only a speck to each of us individually. We live for eternity in this physical, no matter if it's hundreds of times over thousands of years, it's only a speck of eternity. It doesn't even really register. But the experience is very important. We don't get to that without it, at least not us here on this plane or whatever. There are some that cannot adapt for some natural reason. They cannot understand it was not really real. They cannot return to paradise and feel confused and weak, so they end up disappearing from the park, never to be seen again as new individuals enter the park from paradise for the first time. Psalm 75:7. But God is the judge. He putteth down one and setteth up another. Hellish perception. Meaning can be opposite. The symbols of the Bible in many ways are opposite of how they seem. When taken at face value from inside the box physical perspective, if looked at from outside the box, God's spiritual perspective, they can be understood as a natural law of love, which is really all there is. When God talks about sin and damnation, it is an analogy of how it feels when the physical world is cut off from the connection to God, as illustrated by the story of Cain and Abel. When connected in love with God, which is everywhere, it feels comfortable, like being home or in paradise. When separated from God by the experience of fear, fear becomes the root of what have been called the 7 deadly sins, which can only exist within the physical mind and will interfere with the experience of paradise. God is not angry and casting fire upon us. It is more like us burning because we have separated through fear and all aspects of fear. Since God love is really everywhere, then the consequence of that separation could feel like the burning of fire. The eating of the apple is the beginning of separation from our pure God self. But have no fear, we shall all return to love one way or another. God set it all up perfectly for God's pleasure. Heaven, paradise, hell, damnation. Heaven, paradise, hell, damnation. These are conceptual. These all are conceptual, consequential experiences. God is unconditional love, and God is everything, everywhere. The only place those can be experienced is by dense physical experience. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Shakespeare's Hamlet. I interpret that as there are more things in our heads and bodies than are dreamt of in our outward philosophy. Separated, veiled humans try to know the meaning of life by studying physical things, when the meaning of life is actually only found within us. Heaven and hell and everything in between are concept and consequence of eating the apple from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Then can put forth his hand and take also the tree of life and eat and live forever. One of the most common misinterpretations of heaven and hell is the thought that both exist outside of ourselves. They do not and cannot. Well, it can seem that way when we see each other as separate, and by seeing it in others, and or by thinking heaven is outside the planet Earth somewhere. The physical body and outward physical universe is temporary, at least for individual souls, and is constantly changing, which creates the experience of time. The experience of time is a constant change of now, which is where God, the Alpha and Omega, exists. However it began, it also ended, whatever the beginning and ending means. The meaning of everything becomes clear when we in body ascend in energy vibration to the full experience of heaven. When we begin the spiritual evolution into full understanding, which is impossible to experience physically because the physical is dense energy that naturally veils us from full understanding. God in the beginning is pure no thing. So how did it begin? Great question. Ask and ye shall receive. If you ask that question with pure heart and wonder, you may already be on the way to the answer. When we reach the point where our lamp is filled with oil and raise our vibration, the lamp is fully lit and enlightens what is hidden in darkness. Then we will receive full understanding. God feels what is created because the energy of God is in everything. God sees as we see through our eyes, which includes any life form like humans that may exist anywhere in the universes. Universes. Of course, animals and such can see, and they are also God looking through their eyes, but the animals do not ponder like humans. New souls exist here now spiritually and always will exist somewhere in the physical universe as long as God is experiencing and expanding. These baby souls can be like the animal. They can see the things in creation but do not really ponder them. And I'm talking about new souls into human form. When they do begin to notice the things of creation and ponder how they exist, it triggers an awakening of awareness of intelligent experience. Well, usually it is only after beating the head against the wall trying to find the meaning, and by studying the creations themselves or through books and such, the realization comes that doing so just hurts the head and the inward search begins. Man can also be like the animal in carnal nature. Ever see a cat catch a bird? Cats sometimes just like to play with their prey. The cat can be blunt, breaks the bird's wings and legs so it cannot get away, then plays with it like a rag doll. When a human is caught up in its carnal nature and is separated from God love, well, just look around. You'll find human beings getting their kicks out of doing similar things to animals and other humans. Humans can be worse, though, because they have the power of reason and invention. That is what I see as an experience of hell on all sides. Sometimes hell is experienced simply by becoming a physical human being, hence the saying, hell on earth. Samuel 22, 5 through 7. When the waves of death compassed me, the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. The sorrows of hell compassed me about. The snares of death prevented me. In my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried to my God, and he did hear my voice out of his temple, and my cry did enter into his ears. Psalm 16:10, for thou wilt leave my soul in hell, for thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. Psalm 18:5, the sorrows of hell compassed me about, the snares of death prevented me. Psalm 86:13, for great is thy mercy toward me, and thou hast delivered my soul from the lowest hell. Psalm 116:3. The sorrows of death compass me, and the pains of hell get hold upon me. I found trouble and sorrow. Psalm 139, if I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. Proverbs 23. I'm not sure which scripture or which verse. But, thou shalt beat him with the rod and shalt deliver his soul from hell. So all of that right there is just like I've been talking about. And it's something that I believed before I found all of these. I mean, I remember reading some of them, but when I was really coming to understand and everything, and knowing that hell was here and now, or heaven. But right there, Psalms, Proverbs. Another experience of hell is when a human is so attached to physical life that they get caught up in fear, and any or all of the 7 deadly sins. Also, the thought of this being all there is, and having a fear of death and a strong survival instinct. And once again, the 7 deadly sins are not a biblical thing. There's something similar, but not that. But it's a pretty good description. It's fair enough. So, and having a fear of death and a strong survival instinct. The soul does not die when the body dies, but it does carry the energy that is being experienced at the time of death. Sometimes it does not realize that it has separated from its physical body. It does not realize the body has died. It can be difficult to leave the earth plane because the earth's energy is as dense as the body's was, and if a soul is overly attached to the earth experience, it can be challenging to let go of the connection. These souls believe they are still living and create a dream world, so to speak. The movie The Sixth Sense, The Others, and What Dreams May Come are excellent examples of that. In this state, the soul is, spiritually speaking, unconscious and can experience confusion and even purgatory type of hell. Some living people can feel their presence or even see what might be called ghosts, which is why throughout history people have been intrigued by such things. Actually, they are no things. A soul can realize it has left the body but stays attached to its life because it wants to comfort someone, protect them from something, or perhaps they might even want revenge. In the movie What Dreams May Come, the wife kills herself because her grief is too great for her to overcome, and then becomes stuck in her own idea of hell. I think that is a good example of the meaning of in danger of eternal damnation. She was not condemned for eternity, but because she was so withdrawn from love consciousness, which is eternal, her consciousness was an unconscious experience of damnation until she could realize it was her self-created illusion. But she was unconscious of it, and that's a very good description, because they are anything lost like that, a spirit or soul or whatever, is very unconscious. They don't even realize where they are, what they're doing. She could not realize she had died and still believed the physical life and experience of pain and loss to be real. The reason I use King James Version of the Bible is because of things like in danger of eternal damnation. The King James is more pure, so to speak. Other Bibles make that seem much different. They make it sound more like a definite event of existing in hell for eternity, but it is not correct. And what others say is subject to hell or damnation or something like that, but subject to it, not in danger. The movie The Others had a similar example, but was more about the simple confusion that can be experienced until the soul can realize it has disincarnated. To be clear, it is not that one can exist eternally in damnation, but that damnation is eternal because God is eternal. As long as there is an experience of separation from eternal love is like eternal damnation. Souls can return to love when they have not been completely disconnected from love. They can experience trauma of sorts from confusion and the illusion of disconnection. There are also souls that have not experienced love for many or any physical lives, and their energy and light has dissipated to the point that they cannot rise above the density of their experience. The soul that has not evolved up can evolve down or devolve, and the deeper it moves into separation through total fear and darkness, the devolving gets to be unstoppable. By no mistake, though, evolving and devolving are also perfectly chosen by God, created in God's imagination for God's pleasure. But that soul still will return to that from which it came, love. There is a point where that individual soul can reach such a low level that it cannot exist outside the body in pure love, which is eternal. Pure love can be comfortable if the soul is being love, or like fire if the soul is being fearful. If consumed by fear, it cannot exist in a body because it has become too dissipated. Eventually, when it leaves the body, the experience is like being thrown into fire. But the description of weeping and gnashing of teeth is temporary for that soul. Again, pure love is eternal, so the damnation potential exists eternally. But the dissipated, dense individual soul cannot exist eternally and is cleansed or like burned in fire, and its individuality is dissolved back into the love. That soul was never meant to ascend. It was God experiencing what God is not, the lowest of fear and a balance of the highest experience of love. Psalm 75:7, but God is the judge. He put down one and setteth up another. Psalm 139, 9 through 16. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, God's energy, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. And that's a given. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. For thou hast possessed my reins. Thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy words, and that my soul knoweth right well. My substance was not hid from thee, when I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect. And in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. Heaven and paradise are commonly thought to be the same place or experience, but they are actually separate experiences. I have heard a theory of paradise being where the believers go after death to wait for the return of Jesus, and they can be judged. If they are found worthy, they will be given a new body, a name written in stone, and taken to heaven. It was also explained that non-believers go to a purgatory type of place until Jesus comes back, and then they are cast into hell. Of course, other theories state that non-believers do not even stop in purgatory. They just go straight to hell. But Jesus told one of the men crucified with him that he would be with him in paradise that very same day. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. Then it is said after the resurrection from death, Mark 16:19. So then after the Lord had spoken unto them, he was received up into heaven and sat on the right hand of God. Now, it doesn't say ascended, it doesn't say raptured or anything like that, but those would fit into that. And he was received up into heaven. And I've read other scriptures in the last few parts, or the first part for sure, of that point. There is a parable in Luke 16 about a beggar and a rich man. When they died, the beggar is taken into what is called the bosom of Abraham, paradise, and the rich man is said to be buried and in hell. The rich man was able to see into paradise, and the beggar could see the rich man in hell. This is because it is based on the fact that God is everywhere, and God is everywhere in everything, and God is pure unconditional love. The beggar, like the one crucified next to Jesus, had a humble energy that could experience paradise, and the rich man had the energy of at least one of the 7 deadly sins, and so was unable to experience paradise, but they are the same place. Ignorance is bliss. When it says, Jesus said, Luke 23:34. Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He knew it was God's plan and that everyone was doing their part unconsciously. Proverbs 20:24. Man's goings are of the Lord. How can a man then understand his own way? Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for the good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. All have a purpose and know not what they do unless they do. Any that know that what they do will have the fruit of Christ, the fruit of the 10 Commandments. I had a friend that had a funny saying that fits for God in our creation as I see it. If I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Okay, let's see. I'll go ahead and stop with that. I'll try to finish in the next one. It might go a little bit long or longer, but it will start with sin and sinner.